In ancient Egypt, there was the figure of the surveyor, a person who was in charge of dividing the surface of the land because the annual floods of the Nile erased the limits of the properties, making it necessary to have a graphic plan to be able to rebuild them. Pedro Zerdan has performed this activity as a complement to his trade as a farmer for almost 50 years. The first thing you do when you arrive is to look around the field to check the outline and to see how you can break it down into geometric figures to measure it. I place the first flag in a segregation that we are going to make of this field. Watch out my hand, okay? Perfect. Now we go to the other corner. The first thing I do is to nail a rod in a corner, another rod in the other corner, let's say, and with both of them to evaluate the rest of the geometric figures that can be done. Pedro and Agustin, his assistant, trace with the rods or flags the vertexes that establish the figures of a rectangle and a triangle, which delimit and make up the parts of the field. A little bit to the right, Agustin, straight until the bushes you see in front of you. More or less. I'll tell you, take a flag and put it on. A little bit to the right. Stick it. The precision in the layout of the angles that the rods establish between themselves was one of the indicators of the good work of the surveyor. As you can see, that base is much wider, so we'll make a triangle separately. As we call it, a squad, putting one in the direction of this ridge. With this other, and the flag we have there, I make a squad. In case we have to put it more here or more here. A little more to the right. A little more. A little more, 4 fingers. Head or like this? Good. Nail. Well, now that the flag is on, we already know what the geometric figures are. We are going to do the crocus, where we are going to form the corresponding measurements. We have an irregular rectangle and then we have a triangle. It is more or less the segregation that we are going to do of this field, more or less what we have been told that we have to do. To measure it, we do it with a metric chain. That the operation that the metric chain has is that in agriculture you always measure fields with bushes. With some bush, it makes some wind. Then the metric tape is often broken. It breaks or wobbles with the wind. With the metric chain, which is very limited, you can measure it perfectly the same, and you do not have those problems that we would have with the tape. Every 10 meters, the total length of the chain, Agustin nails a handle that serves to establish a reference and continue with the measurements. Well, it is already measured. It is essential that the metric chain is always horizontal with respect to the ground, and thus save the unevenness of the terrain, which depends directly on the experimented eye of the agrimensor. After the measurement of the field and the establishment of the 2 surfaces, Pedro calculates the measurements of the same. 5 and 3, 8. Then below we have 9, 1, 10, which is 1. Most people like to know that what we measure is the surface when you finish. You can't do that with a tachymeter because you have to look at the reduction of the false squares that are taken. The GPS, the length, the latitude, they have to do it. However, with this simple method, you have the ease of when you finish and add up all the surfaces, you know the total surface of the field. Many people wanted to know it as soon as you finished, and it took you 2, 3, or 4 hours. We have just added the two surfaces, and we have a total surface of 876.05 square meters. Now it would only be to mark it with this candle or with some other type of element, and that the owner is satisfied.